In the small village of Morrow Creek, nestled in a valley that rarely saw full daylight, there lived a young woman named Laika. She was so bright and sharp that the whole village marveled at her mind. She could solve disputes, heal wounds with herbs, and predict the weather by reading the wind. Despite her gifts, Laika carried a heavy sorrow. She was unable to have children. She fell deeply in love with a farmer's boy named Erwin, a kind-hearted but simple man who worked the muddy fields from dawn till dusk. Their love was genuine and warm, but Erwin was an only child, and his aging parents pressured him relentlessly to produce heirs. As months turned into years with no pregnancy, Erwin's loyalty cracked under the weight of expectation. He strayed first with a miller's daughter, then with a widow from the next village. Within 2 years, he had fathered 2 healthy boys. The village whispered that Laika was the problem, barren, cursed, and useless. One evening, heartbroken and humiliated, Laika walked to the stream at the edge of town just to cool her head. She knelt by the water, watching her own tear-streaked reflection. But then the unimaginable happened. Her reflection spoke back to her, not as an echo, but as a separate voice, calm, ancient, and knowing. Laika tried to run, but the voice grew louder, clearer, saying, "Don't you want to conceive?" Terrified yet desperate, Laika returned to the stream the next night, and the next, each time speaking longer with the voice that wore her face but was not her. The entity, a free spirit that had wandered the earth for centuries, trapped between worlds and hungry for a body to inhabit, promised her the child she could not have. The price seemed simple. Bring a cloth doll to the stream at dusk, prick her thumb, and let a single drop of blood fall into the water to seal the contract. Laika did exactly as instructed. She stood at the bank, the doll clutched to her chest, and watched her reflection smile as the blood dissolved into the dark current. Then the reflection commanded her to throw the doll into the river. She hesitated only a second before letting go. The doll sank beneath the surface, and for a long, terrible minute, nothing happened. Laika thought she had been fooled. But then the water rippled, and the doll walked out on its own, dripping wet, its stitched limbs moving with unnatural precision. Laika froze, her breath caught in her throat, every instinct screaming at her to run. But before she could move, the doll collapsed at her feet like a marionette with its strings cut, lifeless once more. She picked it up with trembling hands. It felt warm, almost alive, and in that moment her desperation for a child outweighed her fear. She carried the doll home, dried it by the fire, and placed it on her bedside table as a silent guardian. She did not know that the entity had not left the doll. It was merely sleeping, waiting for the right moment to wake. A few nights later, Erwin came home semi-drunk from the tavern. He found Laika folding clothes in their bedroom, and something stirred in him, desire mixed with guilt. He walked up behind her, grabbed her breasts, pressed himself against her back. Before she could push the laundry aside, he was inside her. They made love passionately, desperately, as if trying to remember why they had fallen in love in the first place. Across the room, the doll sat on a wooden chair, with its dolly eyes were wide open, watching everything. Within weeks, Laika felt the first flutter of life in her womb, something she had never experienced before. Her joy was immeasurable, so overwhelming that she fell to her knees and wept, clutching the doll to her chest like a sacred relic. She grew more attached to it with each passing day, placing it by her pillow while she slept, carrying it from room to room as she did her chores, even talking to it as if it could hear her. She saw the doll not as a monster, but as a guardian angel, a miracle worker that had answered her deepest prayer. Erwin, too, was overjoyed, though he never looked at the doll the same way Laika did. Sometimes he would glance at it sideways, a flicker of unease in his eyes, but he said nothing. When the time came, Laika gave birth to a bouncing baby girl with dark hair and bright, curious eyes. They named her Elara, which in the old tongue meant star. Erwin, who already had 2 boys from his infidelities, found this daughter to be exceptionally special, perhaps because she came from the woman he had truly loved, or perhaps because he sensed, deep down, that she had been bought with something more than blood. Their home, once heavy with sorrow, became filled with laughter, love, and happiness. Elara grew strong and clever, just like her mother, and the doll remained by her side from the very beginning, propped in her crib, tucked into her blankets, watching over her first steps and her first words. Laika often told Elara that the doll was her lucky charm, her protector, her secret friend. The little girl believed it completely. For 6 wonderful years the family lived in a fragile peace, unaware that the entity inside the doll had been growing stronger with every passing season, feeding on the warmth and joy of the household like a parasite drinking from a healthy host. It did not rush, it did not reveal itself, it simply waited, patient as death itself, knowing that its time would come.
When Elara was 6 years old, she developed a cough. Soft at first, barely noticeable, the kind of cough any child might get from playing too long in the cold morning air. But days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months, and the cough only worsened. Elara's cheeks lost their rosy color, her bright eyes grew dull, and she began to tire after the smallest walks to the well. Laika took her to every healer in Morrow Creek and beyond, but no one could explain the illness. Some whispered it was a wasting disease, others said it was a curse. Laika knew the truth in her bones. She took the doll back to the stream, hoping to speak with her reflection again, to beg for mercy or for answers. But when she knelt at the water's edge, her reflection did not move. It just stared back at her, silent. That was when Laika understood the terrible truth. The entity was no longer in the stream. It had never been in the stream. It had been inside the doll all along, and the conversation at the riverbank had simply been its way of luring her into a bargain. Desperate, she whispered to the doll itself, and this time it answered, not with a voice from the water, but with a whisper that seemed to come from inside her own skull. The entity explained the real price. A single drop of blood had only been the down payment. To save Elara's life, Laika would have to lay down her own. Not a drop this time, but everything. A life for a life, fully and finally. Running out of options, watching her daughter fade away day by day, Laika made her choice. She took the doll back to the stream one last time, placed it gently on the riverbank, and walked into the water without looking back. The moment her feet left the muddy bottom, the stream turned black as ink and thick as quicksand. It swallowed her in seconds. No scream, no struggle, only silence. The villagers found her body 3 days later, floating face up as if sleeping. Everyone believed she had drowned in a tragic accident. Everyone mourned her. Erwin never remarried. And just like that, as if a switch had been flipped, Elara's health returned overnight. Rosy cheeks, bright eyes, endless energy, as if she had never been sick at all. The family carried on without Laika, but her absence carved a permanent hollow into their home. Erwin became a quiet, gray-haired man who spent long hours alone in the fields, speaking only when necessary, his laughter gone forever. Ilara, now motherless at 6 years old, clung to the only thing Laika had left behind, the doll. She slept with it, ate with it, brought it to school tucked inside her satchel, and whispered her secrets to it each night before bed. The doll became her confidant, her diary, her phantom limb reaching toward a mother she could barely remember. As the years passed, Ilara grew into a stunning young woman. By 18, she had her mother's sharp mind and her father's warm smile, and the whole village agreed she was the image of Laika reborn. But the doll aged with her in strange ways. Its stitched mouth seemed to curl slightly at the corners. Its button eyes appeared to follow movement across the room. Sometimes, late at night, Erwin would wake to the sound of soft footsteps in the hallway, only to find nothing there but the doll sitting on Ilara's nightstand, facing the door. He never spoke of these things. Perhaps he was afraid of sounding mad. Perhaps he already knew the truth, but could not bear to say it aloud. Then, on an otherwise ordinary evening, Erwin sat across from Ilara at the dinner table and suggested, gently, carefully, that she might consider putting the doll away now that she was a grown woman. Ilara's reaction shocked him. She gripped the doll so tightly her knuckles went white, her eyes flashing with something between fear and fury. "It's all I have left of her," she whispered. Erwin replied, "You have me." But even as he said it, he felt the weight of his own years, his own frailty. He would not be around forever. And some ancient, patient thing that wore a cloth face and a stitched smile, had been waiting 18 years for that exact realization.
That night, the doll waited until the house fell silent and Erwin's breathing deepened into sleep. Then it rose from Ilara's nightstand, not crawling, but floating, suspended in the air by an invisible force that hummed with ancient sorcery. It drifted down the hallway and into Erwin's bedroom, where a large mirror hung on the wall opposite his bed. With a flicker of its stitched hand, the mirror tore free from its nails and crashed to the floor, shattering into 100 jagged shards. Erwin jolted awake just in time to see the doll hovering above him, its button eyes gleaming as broken glass rose into the air like a swarm of deadly fireflies. The doll swept its cloth arms sideways, and the shards sliced across the room in a silver arc, opening Erwin's throat from ear to ear. He collapsed onto his blood-soaked pillow without a sound. The doll then floated across the hall to Ilara's room, placed itself gently on her nightstand in its usual position, and went still. When morning broke, Ilara found her father lifeless in a pool of crimson, the broken mirror scattered across the floor, and every sign pointing to suicide, a depressed widower who had finally succumbed to grief. The authorities ruled it a self-inflicted death, and the town whispered their sympathies. But the doll knew the truth. Erwin had been planning to dispose of her, to burn her or bury her where no one would find her. It was either her destruction or his. So she chose to dispose of the threat. 2 days later, while cleaning her father's room, Ilara found a single drop of blood on the doll's cloth body, fresh, red, unmistakable. She reported her suspicions to the authorities, but they advised medication for paranoia. Feeling unsafe and uncertain, and after rumors spread through Morrow Creek that Laika's daughter believed a doll had killed her father, Ilara made a heartbreaking decision. She sold the doll to a rich businessman who wanted to show off his eccentric collection, hoping the money would help her mourn and move on. But little did he know that he had just purchased his own doom.
If you would like to continue with this story, check our page for the follow-up titled The Helsington Mansion Massacre. Don't forget to subscribe and follow for more interesting tales.